is information that was put out there in the ether right after the NBA Finals, and information that I found valuable, information that I found pertinent, information that I found accurate because I tapped in with some of my peoples and they confirmed, like, yeah, this is actually a thing. It's now coming into fruition. So let's start with where we began, right? So let's start with where the T was first dropped. So let's go here to the screen. As always, y'all know how we do here. Right into the screen. Your man's Jay Will. Before the nonsense of him and RJ in the NBA draft, he had this T that he dropped. I've talked to a couple of different players that could be super max this year or next year. They're starting to feel a little pressure from team owners by saying, yo, Jalen Brunson left $113 million on the table. What are you going to do? Now, the concept of being team friendly, the concept of team friendly discounted contracts, this is not a new concept, but in this second apron world that we're living in, especially when it comes to the NBA, this is becoming a more and more prevailing question when owners and front office people are approaching superstar players. Jalen Brunson took a short, why won't you? Now that the Knicks have won a Larry O.B., now that the Knicks have ended a 53-year drought, it's only going to get ramped up even more and more because now we have the heels of not one, but two players that were super max eligible or max contract eligible at the least in the second person who decided to take a short. Now, I did some content about this when this dropped, and I said this is a very dangerous precedent. And I was mocked. I was told I don't know ball. I was told all these things by fans. And we all know that fandom is a mental illness. This is yet another exhibit, another example of why fandom is a mental illness, because fans want you to think that Jalen Brunson leaving $113 million on the table is a great thing. And I can understand if you are a Knicks fan, while you especially think today this is a great thing because it left money on the table for the Knicks to be able to go get Cat, to be able to absorb the contracts of Mikal Bridges, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now they got a Larry O.B. However, if you remove the rose-colored, or in this case, the orange and blue glasses, and understand that this is a horrible precedent because nowhere in regular life, normal life, your life, would you do a thing like this. You would not leave $113 million on the table. You wouldn't. And if you did, you would be mocked for it. Be only in the insane asylum that is athletics and professional athletics is that being championed? Is that being lauded? Is that being used as a rallying cry? Imagine trying to give NBA owners a rallying cry, and you perceive that as a good thing. Can you imagine how insane that is? So the reason why this is now spinning the block, this was what, June 16th. This is after the Larry O.B. by the Knicks tape, after the 53-year drought has been ended. About a month later, the future face of the league, Big Vic, now we could call him Rich Vic, but he could have been even richer Vic, Wemby has signed a 5-year, $252 maximum rookie scale contract extension with a player option in the 5th season. Now, the key word is max rookie scale contract extension. Wembanyama decided on the 25% maximum instead of the 30% supermax escalators to $303 million. So instead of $252 million, Vic could have had about 50 some odd more million, 51 more million by getting 303. But of course, the narrative is going to be, well, he did this so the Spurs will be able to re-up Stephon Castle in the future, and potentially Dylan Harper after that. And while that is all well and good, Tim Duncan did this during his career. Dirk Nowitzki has done this in his career. Taking less, your superstar taking less is not a new concept. However, if we're in the age of player empowerment, if we're in the age of the players have the most power they've ever had, why are players still bowing down to owners? And yes, they can wave the flag of, well, we're doing this in the name of building a team around you. What happens if the Spurs don't sign Dylan Harper? What happens if the Spurs don't sign Stephon Castle? Then Big Vic took a short for what? What would be the justification of losing $51 million, leaving $51 million? Now, of course, Big Vic is a monumental player. He's a super popular player. He's an international player. He gonna make that 51 up in other ways. But the fact of the matter is that the collective bargaining agreement, the CBA, was negotiated for you to be able to go get that 51 extra million dollars. Players that were underpaid for years, the Scottie Pippens of the world, like we all saw in The Last Dance. Scottie Pippen was severely underplayed because the CBA was weak as hell back then, where a player the caliber of Scottie Pippen could not get a bag, and he had to foolishly take a dumb bag just to be able to say he got something out of it. And there was no wiggle room out of it. Victor Wembanyama is on the shoulders of those players. Players in the 60s that breaking six figures was monumental. Big Vic is on the shoulders of those players, and he walks away from $51 million under the guise of, well, this will allow us to sign Dylan Harper and Stephon Castle. I ask you, what happens if the Spurs don't? Big Vic will be okay, but what happens when the next guy is up? When the next guy is up, they're going to say, well, look, Jalen Brunson took a short. Victor Wembanyama took a short. Who are you to not take a short? It's all leverage and negotiations when you go into these contracts. When you apply for a job and that job has a range on it, likely you're trying to get the high end of that range, aren't you? Now, what happens if you're offered that job, but they're offering you the lowest end of that range? You're going to feel a way about that, right? You're going to try to counter that offer, right? So it's okay for you because it's such a significantly lesser number. It's okay. But because NBA players make buku bread, make generational wealth of money, it's okay for them to leave $51 million on the table? Because you certainly would do that, right? If you could walk away from $51 million, then why can't you leave 10 to 15 grand on the table in your job negotiations? Because that 10 to 15 grand to you is what that 51 million is to Big Vic. So if you can leave that 15 grand on the table, why should Big Vic, if you feel a way about having to leave 15 grand on the table, why should Victor Wembanyama feel a way about leaving 51 mil on the table? There's this weird dynamic of where athletes should do things that normal non-athletes would never do if they were in the same shoes. And yes, you're going to have the few fans. And again, remember, fandom is a mental illness. So once you put it in that frame of mind, then you understand a fan's logic. A fan will tell you, oh, well, I would do it because I want to win. If I want to win, I'll take a short. That shit sounds cool in a movie. It sounds great in a Hallmark movie. It sounds great on an ESPN movie. We're talking about real life. We're talking about real life where we've seen people win the lotto and blow it. So everyone assumes when they get this big money, they're all going to know exactly what to do. Those lotto winners thought the same thing. Those people that fall into inheritances and then blow it, they thought the same thing. Oh, wish if I had that money, I know what I would do. You would do what? But yet and still, I'm supposed to be okay with Victor Wembanyama leaving $51 million on the table, even though you won't leave 10 to 15K on the table. Make it make sense. We'll hit the chat. So, Trey, I don't know what the big deal, Kawhi, Harden, unless others have taken less. Yes, they've taken less, and you're naming top-tier players, right? And while it's okay for them to lose bread, they're also on the back half of their career. Kawhi was not taking shorts in San Antonio. When Kawhi was in a Clipper, and all that money that Uncle Dennis and Steve Ballmer had to go and maneuver behind, they had to maneuver that money for a reason because Kawhi was not taking a short. That's the reason why they got into this whole, if Kawhi was, maybe they call it the screen here, if Kawhi would have took a short, he wouldn't be in Toronto right now because he would still be a Clipper. If Kawhi didn't want to take the baggest of bags, so much so that it forced the Clippers to have to circumvent the cap, allegedly, Kawhi would still be a Clipper. That extra money that Kawhi and Uncle Dennis negotiated for, the Clippers allegedly didn't have it. So they had to go through back channels to find a way to go get that extra money. So if Kawhi would have took less, he would still be a Clipper. But because he didn't take less, the Clippers did what they had to do, which was circumvent the cap, and they got busted for it, and now Kawhi is back in Toronto. Analytics have changed the game in every sport. The stats guys are telling owners, and then owners are fixing the salaries accordingly. I mean, look, that part has always been happening, so I'm not pushing back against that, right? That's certainly a point. My thing is this: why are people hired in the front office? If the collective bargaining agreement is agreed upon the owners and the players, front office executives have jobs where the whole job is to figure out how are we going to manage this cap. The cap, as it currently states, if you're not willing to pay into that second apron, which again, let's stop, I'll come with the screen again. Let's stop acting like it is so ridiculous for an owner to pay the second apron. The owners, which are making so much more money, they're making so much revenue, the evaluation for these teams are skyrocketing. Just because the second apron is a bit of a luxury tax, that doesn't mean the owners can't pay it. Owners are refusing to pay it. It's not that they can't pay it. It's not that they're not allowed to pay it. They're just deciding they're not going to pay it. So the fact that we're sitting here acting as though, oh, woe is me, my owner has to make a decision about whether he's going to pay a few extra $100 million or not, when the evaluations for these franchises are going up by the billions every year, what are we talking about? I'm supposed to cry for James Dolan because he doesn't want to pay the second apron to go bring back MAGA Mitch Rob, when the amount of money he's made from this championship run will not be known for at least a decade? I'm supposed to feel bad for James Dolan. That guy, James Dolan, I'm supposed to feel bad for him? I'm supposed to feel bad for Steve Ballmer, who paid $2 billion straight cash for a team? I'm supposed to feel bad for him. I'm supposed to understand his perspective that, oh my God, Steve Ballmer doesn't want to pay the second apron. I could totally rationalize that. A guy that paid $2 billion straight cash, homie, for a team? That's who you side with. That's who you identify with. Not the player. Not the player who's an employee of Steve Ballmer. You identify more with Steve Ballmer. Make it make sense. The sports coach is happening. Yeah, players have been asked to take less since forever. The Heat Big Three all took less. Yes, I do remember the Heat all took less. That's a different scenario. You want to know why? Because they were all trying to play together. Jalen Brunson was not taking a short because he knew the Knicks were going to go get Karl Anthony Towns. They were not buddies like that. The Hedos thing was different. Despite what D. Wade has changed the story about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, it was crafted at the Olympics. When they played together, when Larry Brown was making all those dudes make love to the bench, they all plotted. And it finally came to fruition. Those dudes were boys. Now, there were slight variations along the way. At one point, Melo was in. Then next time he was out. At one point, they thought about Stoudemire because Bosh was like faking it a little bit. But then they got Bosh back in the fold. The main thing is 3 more or less friends, or at least 2 friends, and the third dude that they were cool with wanted to play together. So it makes sense that they collectively, keyword, collectively would take a short. That's not the case with these others. Unless you're telling me Big Vic, Castle, and Harper are so cool that they all gonna take shorts? What part of Ron Harper's son makes you think he gonna take a short? Do you know who Stephon Castle's daddy is? Far Rock in the house, Queens all day. Do you know who is that? You think he gonna take a short? You think if he was in the same position as Big Vic, he would walk away from 51 M's? Because if you're saying that, you don't know who both those dudes' daddies are. Problem is, it is hard to fix the owner's salaries. I mean, look, you buy a business, you operate the business the best way you see fit. If the owner is saying, if James Dolan's like, look, I don't care how many chances we have to run it back, I am not paying that second apron. That's literally what he did, because MAGA Mitch Rob, they barely even offered him a relevant contract. So it was clear they were not bringing them back. And the fact of the matter is that James Dolan could have run it back. He could have said, you know what? He could have had that championship hangover and said, you know what? Man, nah, I'm so delirious. I'm going to run it back. I'll pay the second apron. But even he smartened up Nas and decided, no. We're not going to do that. MAGA Mitch Rob is all good, but nah. I'm going to go get Andre Drummond. I'm good. So, but that doesn't change the fact that the valuation of the Knicks, which was skyrocketed in the first place, is now even higher thanks to this Larry O.B. So that can't change. So if that can't change, and there's no rules that forces that, then why do we have front office people? Why are there people in the accounting department whose job it is to manage the cap? Why do we have capologists? Why are there financial people? If the player's just going to keep taking shorts, even though it was collectively bargained. So you have a union. This is essentially your union is saying, hey, you can make $80 an hour. Oh, no, I don't want that. Just give me 60. I'm good. What? You're paying them union dues to be protected, and they're allowing you to get 80 an hour, but you're just going to elect to take 60? What part of the game is that? If y'all ain't trying to do that, why are we expecting athletes to do the same when it's on them? I will never understand that. It's the most maddening thing when I'm having conversations with fans and they're telling me it's okay that a superstar athlete is taking significantly less. And I always ask the question, well, would you do that? At your job, would you do that? If you were offered 20 more K, would you just sit back and say, you know what, I'll take 5, I'm good. Give that 15 to the rest of the team. My guys, my coworkers, give it to them. Or you know what, let the boss get that. Even though his bonus is unknown to you, because that's essentially what leaving money on the table is essentially allowing the boss to keep that money. Even though there's a salary ceiling that they have to hit, it's only 90%. So there's extra money that's just going to sit there that they don't have to pay out. Steph in the chat, what's good? People don't even give Jesus 10% anymore. They definitely wouldn't leave 51 M's on the tail. Look, when it really comes down to it, that there's a philosophy here that is misguided when it comes to the normies, and athletics. So just people who make a lot of money in general. And we're going to talk about another dude who makes a lot of money later on in this stream. But in regards to what we're looking at here, Victor Wembanyama taking 25% when he could have took 30. We'll jump back on the screen. He could have had 51 more M's. And while I understand the concept of it, and Big Vic certainly fits the profile of someone who would buy into the whole team concept. Take care of my guys, make sure Castle's here, make sure Dylan Harper's here. So I get it. It makes sense. However, there's going to come a point in time where this type of player has to stop taking the short. This ain't LeBron and the Heatles where they were all mans in them. This is the future face of the league taking a short, and how that's going to be leveraged against other players. It's going to happen. And it's not just Big Vic. Austin Reaves. Now, Austin Reaves is not, one of those. He's not a face of the franchise. He's not that type of dude. But understand, even Austin Reaves' contract, 4 years, $180 million. He took a short. What Reaves essentially did was take half of the raise he could have had, 4% instead of 8%, between year 1 and year 2 of his contract. So let me get this straight. He was due an 8% raise. So again, let's take it back to your gig. Your gig says we can offer you an 8% raise. How many of you watching would say, I'm good, only give me 4? Go home to your missus and tell her that and watch that reaction. I could have had 8, but I told him I'm so good, financially and otherwise, I only want 8. I only want 4. Cut that 8 in half. We good over here, right? The way the odds will be cut at you. The way that the couch will be made up for you. The way that it will be just you and the dog for at least a week. You know it. You can't play this type of game at the crib. 8% raise, you only come home with 4? Why? They took it away from you? No, I just said I didn't want it. What? Now imagine being Austin Reaves. Austin Reaves, you're not even the face of the franchise. You're not even the number 1 option on this team, and you taking a short? So wait a minute. I get the whole concept of y'all selling to me, hey man, big time players do that. Okay, that's cool. I still think it's bullshit, but I'll even let it rock. Now we got secondary players taking shorts. Austin Reaves got to take a short too. Who he leaving room? Who he leaving money for? Luka already got his. Who he doing this for? So not only is the number 1 option being asked to take a cut, now we got a second option taking a cut. What are we doing here? What is happening here? Where is the NBPA? They put out a statement for Big Vic saying, hey, we don't like this. This to me is even more troubling because this is I don't want to shade Austin Reaves, but let's be clear. He's a number 2 option on what we all think won't be a very good team this year. And there's a scenario where I could say Austin Reaves is a role player. We got a high-level role player being asked to take a short, cut your raise in half. Y'all make sense of it to me because there's no scenario where this makes sense to me. It also helps there is no state income tax in Texas. I mean, if you're thinking that Big Vic, so then every team, so then Miami, they should never take, again, if we're going to jump into that and leverage that, that's only a play in certain states. So then that makes it even more the saying that Austin Reaves should not be taking a short. By that logic, if I'm to go off of this, that there's no state taxes in Cali, you know who does have state taxes? No state taxes in Texas. You know who does? Cali. You know who has high as hell state taxes? Cali. And Austin Reaves is leaving half of his raise on the table playing in Cali. It's beyond the money with the second apron. Draft picks are affected by as well, bro. Draft picks are only affected if the team really knows how to draft well. Guess whose job it is to draft well? Every single front office. So again, if we're trying to believe the notion that we play to win the game, if that's the hill that we're dying on, that we play to win the game, everybody's impacted by everything. But the first round picks, all their money is slotted already. Front offices have a job if the goal is to win, which we know sometimes we know that's not the truth, even though they tell their fan base that it is. We know it's not actually true. But if we're supposed to believe these teams are all about winning, these front offices have a responsibility to fill out the best team possible. That means they're supposed to draft good players. OKC hasn't lost anybody yet. SGA got the bag. Jalen Williams got the bag. Chet got the bag. That's 3. So the narrative is, in this current CBA, you can only have 2 max players. Then how does OKC have 3? So if Sam Presti and them could figure it out, and they're still drafting well, if they can figure it out, why can't the other teams figure it out? Why do we have to fall on woe is me, the owners, woe is me, these front offices, when one front office has figured it out? Their calculators work just as well as all the other teams' calculators. Somehow OKC's got 3 young players in their prime on max bags. But the Celtics, oh my God, we can't afford Tatum and Brown. We got to get rid of one of them. And let's get rid of the one who doesn't have an agent. Let's get rid of the one that thinks he's too smart. Let's get rid of let's be real, the more blacker presenting one. That's the one we're going to get rid of. Woe is me, the Celtics, who were bought by a private equity fund. That is buku bread. If anyone could pay the second apron, it's a private equity fund. They said no. Now Jaylen Brown's in Philly. Steve Ballmer, $2 billion straight cash. Kawhi want how much? Oh, I ain't paying him that. Let's funnel that money through some back channels, allegedly. Now they get popped for it. Oh, let's just send him back to where he came from. Let's send him back to Toronto. Now Toronto doesn't want to be on the hook for extending Kawhi because they don't know what the sanctions are that are going to come down, even though, hint, hint, wink, wink, the dude who's going to be deciding whatever infractions come raining down upon the Clippers just so happens to be the Raptors owner. All the players are underpaid in the grand scheme of things. Kansas City owner said that Patty Mahomes, after committing, $500 million to Pat Mahomes. I have never been more angry than reading that statement because it was so accurate and true. And there was nothing, absolutely nothing that Patrick Mahomes could do about it. Patrick Mahomes signed a contract, 10 years, $500 million. And the dude who signed him to that contract came right out and said he's still underpaid and he will always be underpaid. That's how much a Patrick Mahomes dries up the value to the man who offered him $500 million. That guy could say, you know what, even with this $500 million, I'm so up, I could never pay you your actual value. That man said that with his chest and no one blinked. That man said that with his chest. Here's $500 million. Here's $500 million. And it still ain't enough. But this is what I'm going to give you, and you're going to take it. Because I could never give you an actual billion. I could never give you 1.5 billion, which is probably your actual worth and value to not only Kansas City, to the Kansas City Chiefs, and to the NFL at large. You're worth triple what I just gave you. But since your union is so weak and so ass, I can give you a short. And the media is going to spin like, oh my God, 500 million, not understanding that I actually underpaid you. Adam Schefter is going to go crazy with tweeting out the details of this contract, and everyone's going to say, oh my God, that's so much money, when I know that's a short. And I know it's so much of a short that when I'm asked about it in the press, I want to publicly tell everyone that it's a short. And you ain't going to say not one syllable about it because you can't do shit about it because your union is ass. Sports Trader, hey, salute, bro. Always appreciate you tapping in. I've been noticing you popping up on the last couple of chats. Bro, and a role player in Austin Reaves. You can sell me on Big Vic, face of the franchise, future face of the league. You can sell me on him. You can sell me on that. I still won't believe you deep down. I won't believe it deep down. But I can look past that slightly and say, all right, you get it. He's from over there, overseas. They sell you on that team shit off rip, whereas opposed to here, we know how we get down. AAU, go for yours. I bet. Austin Reaves? You got to take half a raise? Okay. All right. If y'all say so. If y'all say so. It doesn't make sense to me, but if y'all say so. Half? Half. Half that raise? Half. Tell me, Austin Reaves took it short so the Lakers could bring in Walker Kessler? Is that what you trying to tell me? You see, Luka got his money. You see it here. Luka got his money. He getting his full 30% of the cap. He getting his. I can't believe it. I surely cannot believe it. I find this to be so maddening and disappointing. Absolutely maddening and disappointing. There are so many ways to where front offices control a lot of things. Front offices can really move the needle in terms of how you can maneuver the cap. Matter of fact, let me come to the screen. Let's go to Spot Track. Let's see how OKC did it. Because clearly, one team has figured it out. It may be the fact that they traded for SGA instead of drafting SGA has affected some things. I don't know. But let's play that game. As soon as my keyboard decides to act right, we can get this going. Okay. NBA, OKC, where they at? They're right there. All right, let's come back on screen. So let's see. Jalen Williams, 41.2. Chet, 41.2. So okay, here's what we're looking at. They got the 25% max. So if this is the case, does this mean that Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, and SGA all took the lesser? They took the Victor Wembanyama extension? We're doing this in real time. But SGA's number jumps up to over 30. That's no longer. So his new bag. All right, so here's how this plays out. Jalen Williams and Chet got the max, but they took the Big Vic max. SGA was on the same Big Vic max. So at one point in time, they had 3 players on the lesser max contract. So in this CBA, the narrative is you can only have 2 max players. Here we see 3 players all on max deals in OKC. And they still had a deep roster. Caruso, Hartenstein. Like, again, if you draft well and your scouting department does their job, you can fill out a roster if you have your big 3 all locked in to max deals. So how was OKC able to pull this off where they had 3 dudes all on the 25% rookie max, but somehow no other team can do that? So is the game plan for the Spurs, all right, we got Vic on the lesser max. We're going to try to go get Dylan Harper and Castle on the lesser max. Again, I go back to you and say, do you know who those boys' fathers are? Now, I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'll spin the block, and I'm not sitting here 10 toes down saying it's definitively not going to happen. I just find it hard to believe that you're going to have Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper both taking the short to stay in San Antonio. Especially when other teams are going to be dangling bread out there. The bread won't be able to match what the Spurs can offer, but big bread is big bread. If Stephon Castle doesn't want to continue to live and play in the shadow of Big Vic and someone offers him a equivalent bag or somewhere in the neighborhood of the same bag, he might dip. Same could go for Dylan Harper. Someone wants to hand the keys to Dylan Harper to go be the guy instead of you're going to be the number 2 or the number 3 under Vic his whole career. Dylan Harper might want to go somewhere and be the one. Stephon Castle might want to go somewhere and be the one. You're never going to be the one at San Antonio. You are never going, as good as Tony Parker was, as good as Manu Ginobili was, they were never going to be the one. As good as Kawhi Leonard was, he was never going to be the one. The one was Tim Duncan. Even when he was old and washed, he was still the one. Even though Parker stepped up at times and Kawhi stepped up at times, and obviously Ginobili, when it came down to it, Pop was giving the ball to Tim Duncan. That's going to be the case for Big Vic. Is Stephon Castle going to be cool with that for the next decade? Is Dylan Harper going to be cool with that for the next decade? This is where we're at here. SGA is no longer going to be getting that 25% maxed. He's jumping up to the full max next year. And you see how that aligns here. They still got Jalen Williams and Chet locked in their escalators. They go from 25% to 25.6 to 26.2. So they're getting their raises. But the big jump is SGA. And that's probably why Lou Dort is probably not going to be there. But again, you're talking about losing to Lou Dort. I'm not saying the man is he's certainly not irreplaceable, right? He's a key player. He's a role player. He was there for the chip. But your core 3 is still there. And you still got role players that are vets in Caruso and Hartenstein. So somehow Hartenstein could go get his bag. Caruso could get his bag. They can extend SGA even more. And Chet and Jalen Williams can have their money. But somehow the rest of the league can't do the same. The rest of the league can only have 1 max player, 2 at the most. But if you're Boston, you can't even afford 2. Because of this dark cloud that is the second apron. Somehow OKC has figured it out. The money is right here in front of you on your screen. OKC has figured it out where Chet and Jalen Williams can have the same max bag. SGA can come off of the max bag that was slightly less and then go get the real max, and they'll still be fine. So much so that they didn't legitimately consider even getting involved with Giannis, because Giannis would have wanted SGA money. Now that would have threw this whole thing off. Steph in the chat, this fandom talking about, I would love if Dylan Harper ended up at Golden State. I mean, look, at some point, someone's going to offer it to him. Someone's going to offer it to him. He's too good. We know what that ceiling is. He has number one guy potential. I'm not going to say number one on a champion level good. I haven't seen enough of him yet. Only 1 year in. But he has number one lead guy potential. If that's the case, do you want to be the number 2 or 3 for a decade plus behind Victor Wembanyama? I don't think it's automatic to just say, yes, he's going to do that. And we all can definitively say that. Especially when his father was a former hooper and was a real good one before injuries fucked his knee up and messed his career up. He still stayed long and on enough and got championships and all that. But Ron Harper was a bucket. Ron Harper was a bucket. And then the knees got shot. Not literally, but the knees were hurt. The knees were bad. And he didn't have the technology back then in the 80s and early 90s that they have today. So when your knees were shot back in the day, your career was a wrap. So he left bread on the table because of injuries. You think he gonna let his son leave bread on the table to go be number 3 behind Vic? It's a dicey game. It's a dicey game. So somehow, some way, Sam Presti and the Brain Trust in Oklahoma City have figured it out, but all the other teams in the NBA have no idea what to do, have no idea how to make this happen, have no idea how to copy and paste what is clearly working. You see here, SGA, his extension was designated veteran. So because he's at that point in his career, he can now get the full-fledged max. And that's why his number jumps up to 60-plus M's. Jalen Williams, and where's Chet? Well, they didn't have the designation for Chet there, but he got his extension as well. They figured it out, and they still got all the future picks in the world. They still got all the future picks in the world. Future picks. Let's go to OKC. My bad on the scroll. Where's Element OP? Just a little. There we go. Dog, look at all these picks, bro. Look at all these picks. Look at all these picks, bro. Look at all these picks. And you want to tell me it's impossible? You want to tell me that? And they're doing this without even thinking about the second apron. They're not even thinking about the second apron. And these are just first-round picks. These are just first-round picks. Upwards of 5 first-round picks next year. 5. 3 the year after that. 2 the year after that. 2 the year after that. Somehow, they have figured it out. And no other team in the league can't. Everyone else is dumb. Everyone else is this clueless. Or is it not really about winning? They need to sell to the fans it's about winning. They need to sell to the league and their partners that it's about winning. But is it actually about winning? When the Boston Celtics and the boy genius Brad Stevens tried to do this, where he tried to say that, and I'll come off the screen here, the boy genius Brad Stevens tried to say that, oh, well, we got rid of Jalen Brown because, you know, his contract and the amount of years left on the deal and et cetera, et cetera. And a reporter, one of the few times the media had some balls, was like, well, wait a minute. The Paul George deal is only 1 year shorter. So it's not like Paul George is an expiring contract this year. So he had that money because he was like, oh, well, we got more money for the cap next year and the season after that. And he was like, well, wait a minute. Paul George's contract is locked in. So what are you doing? It's a player option. Like, it's not a team option. It's a player option. Like, Paul George could opt in and collect all that money and fuck your whole thing up. Now, if they have a deal in place, again, more Kawhi, Clippers circumvention, if PG, Pandemic P, and the Celtics have a, you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, look, we only want you here for 1 year. We know you have that player option. we don't want you to pick up that player option. So we're going to do whatever we got to do to make sure you don't pick up that player option. We don't want you here. Now, if Pandemic P is silly enough to go along with that, or if he's at the point in his career where he doesn't care anymore, then maybe the boy genius can get off what he's trying to get off, where I didn't want to pay, or let me be clear, the private equity fund did not want to pay Jalen Brown for the next 3 years and then have to be forced with extending him again and paying him max money. So, okay, we're going to get out from underneath that contract. We're going to keep Tatum because he looks the part. And now we're going to find a way to get out from underneath this Paul George contract because we don't want to pay him either. We'll pay him for this year because we got to. We have no choice. But that player option, he cannot pick that up. If that has been told to Brad Stevens from the private equity fund, you know there's been conversations already. It doesn't take a lot to make the leap of, don't be surprised if Paul George decides to forego all this money that he's owed in Boston next year. When again, fan logic, any one of us would just pick up that player option and take that bread. All these picks, bro. You kidding me? All these picks, bro. All these first. What does Boston have? How many picks Boston got? Boston don't got a lot of picks. They do not have a lot of picks. They don't have a pick in 2029. They don't have their own pick, meaning they got a swap with the Kings. They do not have a lot of picks. So again, who's supposed to come help Jason Tatum? It ain't going to be with draft capital. Because the first Sixer pick isn't until 2031. So when's that help coming for Tatum? We got rid of Jalen Brown because we want to surround Jason Tatum with help and cheaper help. That usually means draft picks. I guess, again, unless they think Hugo Gonzalez is going to come in and take the league by storm, where's that help supposed to come? Because it ain't coming through the draft. Unless they're going to nail this first pick next year, which likely won't be in the lottery. They have a pick swap with the Spurs. That will not be a high pick. They have a pick with Portland. Depending on what Ja does in Portland, assuming he's still there because Nike wants him to be in 2029, that probably won't be a lottery pick. When does the help come for Jason Tatum to justify the fact that Jalen Brown and his salary were no longer a viable fiscal responsibility for the private equity hedge fund? Steph in the chat, do you think someone like Ant takes a team-friendly deal or he getting all his? I mean, I think he already got, he got the first extension, right? Ant got the first extension. Let's see. I don't think he took the 25, but let's see. Did he take the 25? No. Ant did not take the 25. He took the full 30. So here you go. Ant took the full 30. Even LaMelo took the 25. LaMelo took the short. How'd that work out for Charlotte? How'd that work out for LaMelo? LaMelo took the short in Charlotte. Team-friendly contract. They shipped his ass to Minnesota. Exhibit A, Your Honor. Leave some money on the table, LaMelo, so we could surround you with help. Oh, that help didn't come? Or that help didn't gel with you? You're driving reckless through the streets of Charlotte? All right, we're going to get you up out of here. What happened to that 5% that LaMelo left on the table? Can he go back and get that? No. He just took the short. LaMelo took the short and they shipped his ass on up out of there. Ant did not take that short. And guess who his agent is? Rich Paul. You think Rich Paul gonna let that man take a short? Ant did not take the short. So that tracks. And again, they found a way. They have found a way. So they have two max guys. They have Ant on the full max, the full 30% max, and they have LaMelo on the 25% max. In theory, they should be able to go get another max guy. But that's not the case because they have Jaden McDaniels and they have Rudy, who as a vet is getting big bread, but that's expiring, right? In 2 years. This green means a player option. Let me see. What does that mean? What does green? Yikes. Where does the table mean? Is it at the top? Okay. No, it's not. Oh, yeah. Green is player option. So Rudy Gobert has a player option next year. So in theory, Rudy Gobert could be an expiring deal. Now, have they had that conversation with Rudy? But the fact that you have Ant at the full max, LaMelo at the 25% max, Rudy is still getting a full max for a vet, and Jaden McDaniels is getting a good salary for a role player. They just gave AO the bag. It's a lot of dudes making money on this Minnesota squad, and they were still trying to get, let me not say it's past tense, even though we all think LeBron's not going to do the easy thing or the right thing and go to a Philly, go to a Minnesota. He's going to do the easy hometown move and go back to Cleveland, allegedly, or maybe Miami, allegedly. But they still had room to go bring in LeBron. Even with LaMelo getting the full max, even with LaMelo getting the 25% max and getting the full max, Rudy getting a max as a vet, and Jaden McDaniels and AO getting the max at their level, they still have a way to go get LeBron. So again, if this is possible, how are these other teams not figuring it out? Philly just traded for, let's do the Philly one. The Philly one's even crazier. Because Embiid got the max. Jaylen Brown got the max. Maxey has the 25% max. And they still found a way to get it done. So you could have two maxes, two full maxes, and a 25% max. Both on the same squad, and both on the same squad for a few years. Embiid has a player option 2 years from now. So somehow that makes sense. That is able to work. The capologist got no problems with this. But Big Vic got to take a short. Austin Reaves got to take a short. Now, granted, they had the benefit of VJ Edgecombe on a rookie deal. And Phylon could be one of those, and they got him on a rookie deal. So this is that small window of, hey, we'll pay for Embiid and Jaylen Brown and Maxey. They're at the top of their game, but you got to have some cheap. This is the OKC copy and paste. You have your big three guys, you pay your big three guys, but you have to hit on some draft picks after that to help supplant and build a roster. You're building a roster with youngins. You're building a roster with rookies and good rookies. Just because you have a draft pick doesn't mean you're going to hit on that draft pick. The draft pick to some franchises is still a lottery where the odds of them hitting on a pick is very, very slim. But somehow, Philly's able to have two guys making the full over 30% max and Maxey at the 25% max, and they have a chance. So somehow they figured it out. OKC has figured it out. Minnesota has figured it out. And Philly has figured it out. Yet, San Antonio don't even want to entertain that. Let's get Vic for the short, and once we get Vic for the short, they are daring Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper to walk in there and ask for the 30. Because if Big Vic is taking a short, you can't go in there and get more money than Big Vic from the Spurs. So that is setting the precedent of, hey, Dylan Harper, Stephon Castle, guess what? You can only get the 25 because our most important player, our best player is taking the 25. I wish you would walk in here and ask for the 30. I wish you would. But that's okay. Fans are cool with it. It's no biggie. Because imagine if, let's imagine the best coworker you have, the star of your department, and you find out he makes $10K less than you. Would you then go into your boss's office and say, you know what, our best worker is underpaid, take the $10K from me and give it to him? Would you do that? How many of you would do that? And if you did do that and you go home and you tell your significant other that, how that gonna go? I want the 30. You can't make more money than Big Vic. If Big Vic decides to take the 25, why do I gotta accept the 25 if I'm Dylan Harper? Why do I gotta accept the 25 if I'm Stephon Castle? Why can't I get the 30? Well, Vic took the 25. That's Vic. I'm not Vic. I want the 30. It doesn't work that way in sports. But it would work for you and I if whatever you get is what you negotiate. That's okay in the real world. That's okay in normal world. But in the sports world, because the best employee, the most important employee, take a short, we all got to take shorts. Make that make sense. All right, let's get into Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick somehow was brought back into the news because of your man's Hove. Hove did a bunch of concerts here, got everybody in a frenzy. Yankee Stadium, 3 nights. Brought out all the people, all the folk. And it looked to be a good time. However, on night 1, like he did the Roots Picnic, Jay-Z did a freestyle. And in his Philly freestyle, he dissed Drake, he dissed Dame Dash, he dissed a whole bunch of people. So there was a highly anticipated moment to what's going to happen when Hove touches Yankee Stadium. Who's going to catch strays at Yankee Stadium? Who's going to be the next under the ire of Hove? So after getting a fresh cut for his women's beauty care products, he took the stage and threw some bars at Colin Kaepernick. Yes, we're still somehow talking about Colin Kaepernick in 2026. Even after, 7 years after him signing and settling with the NFL, we're still somehow mentioning Colin Kaepernick in 2026. And we're mentioning Colin Kaepernick because it is the most easiest stain on Jay-Z's record. It is the most easiest stain on his profile. He would lead you to believe that he doesn't make mistakes, or all his mistakes were as a drug dealer. All his mistakes were early in his career. Once he got up, he stayed up. From Def Jam president to Tidal to the Rockefeller flip, making the deals with cell phones to sell 1 million copies of your album, all that stuff. He would make you think he has not made a mistake. So when he makes a mistake, like having an exclusive deal with Target to sell out a special edition version of his album, but there are those in the black media space that are running to protect him by saying, well, other stores are offering it too. Not the one that Target is selling. It's a Target exclusive. So clearly you negotiated a deal directly with Target to have a special edition of what you're selling be put on display for them. Hove knows that there's a boycott. Hove knows that because of their DEI policies, people are continuously, to this day, Deontay Wilder, boycotting Target. Hove don't care because Hove is a capitalist. Hove don't care because if he sees $1, he's still that hustler in Brooklyn that was selling drugs. And even though he has come a long way in terms of legitimizing himself and those around him At the end of the day, he does all the same moves, whether it was losing 99 bricks and finding a way to get that back, whether it's stabbing on Rivera, whether it's doing funny money things when it comes to Rock Nation contracts and even Live Nation contracts, to now making a deal with Target to where you are selling product trying to get black people to buy Target when you know there is an ongoing boycott of black people buying things at Target. Now, are there still black people buying things in Target? Yes. Are they in masses like prior to the boycott? Nowhere near. Target has admitted as such that they have lost a lot of their black customer base. So don't you find it funny that on the heels of Jay-Z announcing this whole run around 30th anniversary of Reasonable Doubt, and what was it, the 20th or 25th anniversary of Blueprint, that we're going to run to Target or make a deal with Target to sell my album? Because who's likely to buy that product? Black people. So you're now encouraging black people to go to the place that black people are openly, not unilaterally, but more than enough, are boycotting. You are encouraging people to go to a place that has admitted that they are losing their black customer base, that has admitted that they are no longer adhering to common decency and DEI practices. You are selling a product directly through them. You are trying to generate income for that company. So we was on his ass about it. I've coined the phrase capitalist Hove because that's who he is. So he has heard that. And he is trying to call out the fact that, oh, well, y'all shop at Amazon. Y'all shop at all these other places. Y'all use social media. You know who owns that? So allow me to do a deal with Target because you use social media. Allow me to leverage my blackness for profit because you shop Amazon Prime. Allow me to continue to use my blackness for generational wealth that stays only within me and mine's because you are on YouTube and Google owns YouTube. That's his retort. Does that sound like a smart retort? Does that sound like someone who knows what the hell they're doing? Does that sound like a sound businessman? Does that sound like the same dude who says, I'm not a businessman, I'm a business man? The dude that did back-to-back albums with R. Kelly. The man that did tours with R. Kelly. That guy. The guy that sold out Brooklyn so the Nets could be in Brooklyn. He allowed a Russian oligarch, a Russian billionaire, to use Jay-Z's blackness to allow low-income residents to be dispersed from their apartments to clear the way for Barclays Center to be built and all the surrounding high-rises and businesses that followed. The same guy that sat down with Roger Goodell and said to the world, we are past kneeling. That guy. The guy that has cosplayed Basquiat. This is the guy that we're supposed to be following. This is the guy we're supposed to be adhering to. This is the guy that we're supposed to be looking up to. He is being put in a position that he does not belong in. He's being put in the position of a MLK and Malcolm X when he's more like Al Sharpton. This is y'all hero. This is who y'all have propped up. So the fact that Jay-Z is out here and he's throwing shade on the freestyle, they run out of characters, had to bring up Cap again. Buddy took a check. I ain't even mad at him. But along with that check, you have to sign a non-disparagement. I'm the one they can't control. That sounds cute, except for the fact that he's wrong. It's all cute until you find out that he's wrong. So again, the guy that goes on stage and pontificates, the guy that goes on stage and wants to tell you that he knows it all. He is Hove, Hova the God MC, me Jehovah, all of that. He has been through the fire and come out on the other end, and he knows it all because he's been through that fire. He is in these rooms that is so inaccessible for you and I. He is in these rooms that are supposed to be so unattainable for us to even fathom the things. He gets one of ones. He put us on the U-blows. He told us to stop wearing jerseys. This guy. He was wrong. Now, will he spin the block in another freestyle? He's doing the London shows next. Right? Is he going to go over there to London with the blokes and freestyle that he was wrong about Kaepernick? Because they're saying it that a source told TMZ that Colin Kaepernick did not sign a NDA. Did not. So Hove, who made a deal with the NFL, Hove, who sat next to Roger Goodell and told the world we're past kneeling, even though we were nowhere near past kneeling, and Kaepernick admitted as such. And when you see what is still going on to this day to black people, black boys to be specific, why would Jay-Z be able to feel a way about saying we're past kneeling? And let's examine who's around him. Roger Goodell, obviously, who tried to act as though this whole thing of social unrest that was going on during the pandemic was not a thing, and then had to apologize for it later when it became so apparent, so overtly apparent that it was happening. He had to spin the block and apologize. Then we're looking at Tiki Barber. This guy right here, Tiki Barber, former NFL player, former New York Giant, former running back, who's now a media pundit, has a radio show, not a very good radio show, but he has a radio show. Tiki Barber once said, Tiki Barber is not the greatest representation of his culture and his race. And he has admitted as such because I used to work on his show, and he famously or infamously said at one point in time, he did a show with a white co-host, and he said, matter-of-factly, his co-host, who was a white, bald Italian dude from Brooklyn, was more of a black man than he was. Let me run that back for you. Tiki Barber, a black male football player, looked into a camera, spoke into a microphone, and said that his white co-host, who was unathletic, bald, and flabby and sick, was more of a black man than he was. So again, you have Roger Goodell, who thought that social unrest and social injustice was a myth. You have Tiki Barber, who thinks his white Italian from Brooklyn co-host is blacker than he is. And I'm supposed to believe that you have the culture in mind when you're sitting at the table breaking bread with these folk? It is akin to, we're seeing the Democrats out here running around all praising Lindsey Graham on his way out, when he was one of the most strident against people that look like me and Jay-Z and Tiki Barber. Just say you're trying to be the only black in the room. And I could tell you this from experience in corporate America and especially in sports media corporate. You will run into a lot of black faces, unfortunately, that like being the only one in the room. That is not I. I don't like being the only one in the room. I despise it because it makes things stand out so much more than it should. When I'm the only one in the room, I'm like, well, what have they done that is so much better than who I know on the outside who can do this job? These people at this table, why am I the only one who looks like me at this table? And I'm sure women catch it the same way, especially black women. When a black woman walks into a corporate table and she's the only woman in the room, and maybe even also the only black person in the room, she's looking around like, what have all these other people have done to make them more qualified than the people that I know that look like me, that I know are just as good or maybe better than the people that are currently at this table? So Jay-Z goes to this table and makes a deal strictly for himself and his companies. If it's about his companies, he'll ride. If it's about the betterment for him and those in and around him, he'll ride. When it's for the culture, he doesn't give a fuck. And I would feel so much better about his moves if he would just admit that. I would be okay. Let me know what it is. I mean, if you just watch his moves, he's telling us, but he's able to go on stage and lie at a concert, and people eat this up like it's the truth when he's actually lying. Enough with Hove. What happened to the Marcy? I looked this up. This is the TBA. I think it's called the Bitcoin Academy. What is it called? Whatever it is. There was a movement. There it is, yeah. Jack Dorsey and Jay-Z are giving back to the residents in Marcy projects with free Bitcoin classes, right? It's through his foundation, the Sean Carter Foundation. Free Bitcoin education classes presented by Crypto Blockchain Plug and Black Bitcoin Billionaire. You see here what the classes were going to be. Take a screenshot if you want to read it. Take a screenshot if you want to read it, right? The Bitcoin Academy. Yeah, so that is what TBA means. So I went to go look this up because I wanted to know, well, what the hell's going on with this TBA? So summer classes, 2025, 2024, 2023, 2022. So for 4 years running, and I'm assuming 5 because we're in 2026, but there's no drop down for 2026. Let's assume that 2026 just has not been posted yet. Summer classes, 2022 through 2025. Free classes exclusively for Marcy residents. So on the surface, this looks amazing. On the surface, this looks like a real powerful thing. Hove is going back to the community to teach them about the future of crypto and how they could get in early, except they're not getting in early. Because Bitcoin, especially around 2022, was already out of here, especially if you're living in Marcy projects. So were people in Marcy being given free Bitcoin? Like, how are they supposed to buy Bitcoin? You're already living in Marcy projects. Bitcoin, let me come off screen. What was the price of Bitcoin in 2022? Come on, Bitcoin price 2022. It began at nearly 50K. Let's see. It peaked at 50K and dropped down at its lowest to around 23K. Who at Marcy had 50K or even 23K to give out? Okay. Who had that bread? Who in Marcy had that? If they had 40K to drop on some Bitcoin, would they still be living in Marcy projects? But Hove is coming around giving them classes. The problem is I can't find, outside of this little testimonial thing here at the bottom, I couldn't find any information in regards to actual participation of students in these classes. Now, again, I'm not saying this is fugazi. I'm just curious as to why there's no actual footage of the classes happening. Like this here is a thing that's here in the background and the watermark, the logo thing here. But outside of that, there's nothing else that shows that these classes are actually happening outside of these testimonials, which, let's be real, could be manufactured. What happened to these Bitcoin classes? Why isn't summer 2026 here on the website? Is it over already? So not only did you sell out your people for a stadium for under 1% of a team, but then you come back to the hood with your man's Jack Dorsey and use his name to give yourself even more clout, come back to the hood, and you're offering them exposure to new technology, to potential financial wealth, but Bitcoin had already reached a point to where it was so expensive that you weren't going to be able to get people to buy into it. So people in Marcy couldn't afford to buy into Bitcoin, but you're offering them free classes on how to get Bitcoin, but they can't afford the Bitcoin at the price. What is the outcome of that? And why isn't 2026? Why isn't summer 2026? Why isn't the website up? I mean, maybe they just did update the website. I know as someone with the website how difficult it is at times to keep your website up to date. But I would like to think someone the likes of Sean Jay-Z Carter and the Sean Carter Foundation could update a website in a more timely fashion. I don't know. You tell me. You tell me.